All right. Some of you might recognize that I'm starting a commission of Rebecca Cunningham from Disney's Talespin. The commissioner asked for her to be dressed as a pilot and to be featured in an advertisement for her business, Hired for Hire, which she, of course, bought off. She didn't buy. She kind of performed a corporate takeover of it at the beginning of the Talespin series. Remember, Baloo was overdue at the bank, and she kind of bought it up under his feet, and now she owns his delivery company. Which might have been one reason that a lot of people disliked her. Well, with no further ado, let's get to the questions. What if Season 3 of TMNT used the look from the Bay movies and introduced any characters used in it? I would hate that. I'd like to think we'd all hate that, but I would especially hate that. Okay, running down my problems with the Bay film right off the bat. Okay, I can kind of deal with Shredder. I don't like the fact that I guess he's whitewashed in this one, which means he was an Asian character, and they turned him into a rich white guy. I can kind of deal with his cybernetic super armor. I would like it if he shows up in the armor beforehand and then upgrades his armor, because that would be like a really good parallel to the Super Shredder. I'm not sure about the knives throwing out and then coming back and all that other bullshit. But here's my problems with the Turtles. Well, I have one specific problem and why I don't want it in the cartoon series. But my overall impression of the trailer and the Turtles is that, why do they have to be so freaking big? Why do they have to be so freaking big? They're turtles. What was charming about them is that they were usually smaller or at the same height of their enemies. And even then, the foot soldiers were slightly taller. And what was cool about that, and what's interesting about that, is that ninjas are usually always the underdog. You gotta think back to the origin of ninjas, who were a bunch of poor farmers who used repurposed farming equipment, hoes and shovels and all that kind of crap. And then he makes them the size of small transformers. Which, okay, why would I care if any of them comes up against a foot soldier? Especially in this series, since I just saw a teaser of them riding an elevator and doing the beatboxing and all that stupid shit. But they're not foot soldiers. They're not ninjas. They're just soldiers with guns. Which I guess that's the only way to do it now, is to just give them guns and make them shoot. Which was always present in the other series. It's just that they were ninjas and they disarmed that crap instantly. But hand to hand, going toe to toe, I'm not going to be afraid for the Turtles. I'm not going to be impressed by any of their skills, because they're just going to swing around. And I even call bullshit on the gun thing that I just said earlier, because in one trailer I saw, it says that they're bulletproof, which bullshit. I mean, no, turtle shells are not bulletproof. Okay, but here's the overall thing. The one thing I never want them to put from this movie into the show, and that's Donnie wearing a pair of glasses. Because of course he needed a pair of glasses. He's the nerd. He's the smart one. He's the guy that works computers. Of course he needed a pair of glasses. Donnie has dodged that one stereotype all the years that Turtles has been around. Donnie was the smart one, and he didn't wear any glasses. Because, of course, in every other series, if you're the smart one, you have to wear a pair of glasses. That's my only problem. That's my only real big objection. And I know it's superficial, and I know it's kind of stingy to kind of bitch about, but it was neat. It was neat that Donnie dodged that one cliche all this time for what, I think 20 years, more than 20 years, but just, I hope they don't do that. And that kind of pissed me off. That pissed me off more than the lips. The fact that they gave him glasses. I mean, every piece of fan art that I see of the Turtles that try to kind of make them unique and differentiate them from each other, they always put glasses on Donnie, but they're not seeing glasses. They're tactical glasses. They're like X-ray vision, or they've got some sort of computer screen on them, or something interesting like that. But no, Bay was just like, okay, he's the smart one. He has to wear glasses. So no, I'm not. I hope that never gets into the series. And I can't even imagine which other characters that the movie would introduce. I I haven't seen any mutants. I haven't seen any... The series is fantastic, though. It's still great. I should take a little while to just talk about how I feel about the series, which I really am enjoying. I mean, I did a vlog about it earlier, and I said it was great, and I said I was really enjoying it and really looking forward to it. Nothing has pretty much changed from that, except, you know, a few twists and turns, a few what I believe are missteps. Nothing major, really. Like, I was excited about how this was kind of fresh and new and was going in its own direction. And then it kind of went back to the 1980s cartoon. The tone's still great. I love it. In fact, it's gotten even darker. It's really getting into, like, it almost reminds me of, like, Cronenbergian in all the different things that are happening. But they need to slow down. I mean, they're not going to have any more humans around if they keep mutating people. Kind of iffy about the season ending. I mean, I was emotionally invested, so they got me there. You know, and I'm looking forward to the next season. Except the season premiere starts with the Krang, which really kind of... I'm kind of looking forward to something else. It's like they teased something else, and then they're delivering on a big Krang invasion, which I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, that's interesting, because that'll follow up something else that I've been wondering about, but I'm kind of hoping you touch base on this other thing. But, yeah, I'm really enjoying the TV series. There was a reveal about a character that, at first I was like, I was groaning about it, but they seem to be using it in an effective manner. So yeah, go check that out. Favorite depiction of a crazy, vengeful ex in fiction? Mine is the black symbiote in Spider-Man. That's actually pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm not big on the whole crazy ex storyline. They're not usually my favorite kind of stories. And they don't really register with me. The only one that really comes to mind off the top of my head is... No, that's not even X, because they were kind of... No, okay, they broke up, no. I'm thinking of the episode of Futurama where Bender starts dating the ship. Because that's right, because they did break up, and... No, wait, did they officially break up? I mean, Bender was obviously cheating on her, with some other robots. But I'm not sure if he actually came out and said... Oh, no, that's right. They were running away from the Omicronians. That's right. Which leads into another Vengeful X episode, is when, I guess, again, I'm not even sure if that qualifies. Yeah, I guess that they weren't really exes. They were just separated. You know, what's his name? Lur, of the planet Omicron Persei 8, separated with his wife for a while because they just got burnt out. It was in the Comedy Central years, which, I don't know, I liked. I'm glad they got that. I can sort of consider that getting it out of their system. I'm kind of glad it stopped, because there's only so many places you can go with it. And it didn't stick around to, like, become a zombie like a lot of other shows. You know the one. But again, I like the series finale that they did on Comedy Central. I like how that wrapped up. But getting back to the question, there's that one. There's Lure, which I consider that more of a separation than a crazy ex. God, I'm trying to think of one. I'm trying to think of crazy ex stories, but I can't for the life of me think of any. Oh, man. Okay. I'm looking at my shelf right now, and I just saw American Dad. And I think there was one episode, which I don't know if it qualifies as crazy, but, let's see, what's, oh my God, I'm completely blanking on the daughter's name, and Jeff, okay. Jeff and, what the hell is her name? Haley, okay, Haley. Wow, I haven't seen American Dad in a while. Which is weird, because that's my favorite of the Seth MacFarlane shows. So anyway, Haley breaks up with Jeff. Jeff gets all mopey and sad, but then forms a relationship with... Oh my God, I've completely lost all their names. Who's the kid? Who's the boy's name? Haley, Jeff, and... Dave? No. Oh my, wow. Steve. Okay, Steve. Okay, wow. Okay, this is scary. Klaus, Roger, Stan, Francine, Deputy, Helic. No, that's not his name. Oh man. Snot Toshi. Who's the fat kid? Snot Toshi. And Fatty. They had a whole episode. It's like my favorite one of the episode. It's like my favorite of the series. It's a whole episode dedicated to him. I can't remember his name. Barry. Okay, Barry. Wow, that was weird. It's like I forgot all of their names. Anyway, there's an episode of that where Jeff and Steve form a bond over a video game, and Haley becomes jealous of that, and so Haley creates a character and goes and kills Steve's character, who is this completely overpowered behemoth that's, I guess, been bullying all the other characters. Or no, all the other friends of his really revered Steve because he was just the reason that their party was so successful. Not really crazy, but mean-spirited ex. That's the best I can muster. Okay, I'm looking at my DVD shelf now, and I've got, Darkwing Duck. Okay, you got Darkwing, you've got Goslin, you've got Launchpad, you've got Morgana, you've got Gizmo Duck, who came off and on, Negaduck, Liquidator, Bushroot, Quackerjack. Okay, I'm just testing myself because that really freaked me out. Animaniacs, Yakko, Wacko, Dot, Plots, Hello Nurse, Minerva Mink, Slappy, Skippy, South Park, Stan, Kyle, Kenny, Cartman's mom. Okay, that's a gimme. Okay. Which color of Dresden File vampires would you be? Black, exactly like Dracula. Red, bat monster in a flesh suit with addictive drool. White, feed on an emotion such as lust from sex, fear from scares, or desire through driving others to despair through driving others to suicide, or jade. Not sure, but I'm guessing feeds on chi. I have no idea about the Dresden Files. Those are all really interesting, though. Black, exactly like Dracula. Red, with addictive drool. And white feeds off an emotional vampire. Okay. And jade. That reminds me of that episode of Jackie Chan with the Chinese vampire that fed on your chi, and let's see, he couldn't cross running water, which is normal. He was blind. He was blind, so he couldn't see you unless you took a breath. And what else? They needed, I think they did something, had to defeat him with something with his sock. I'm not sure. But I especially like that episode because that's kind of the body switching episode or the personality switching episode, because it was an excuse for a chi transfer. The vampire would catch a victim, one of the four. Let's see, there was Grandpa, Jade, Jackie Chan, and Toru. The vampire would catch one of them and then drain some of their chi out, and to prevent them from becoming a vampire, Grandpa put a spell or used a spell to transfer chi from one person to another, and their personalities kind of melded together. For example, I think Toru was the first one to get it, and so Jade, who has a lot of extra energy because she was young, gave up some of her chi. From the rest of the episode, Toru was kind of this energetic, Jade in a big, oversized sumo body. Really interesting question. Different vampires. I'm not sure which one I would ever be. They've played with the mythos a lot. Of course, there's the Twilight vampires, which, people harp on that a lot, but I'm gonna say the whole sparkling in sunlight, it kind of makes sense from one perspective, in that you'd want to be attractive and you'd want to most animals either catch their prey or attract their prey. That vampire, that kind of sparkly vampire, is kind of what that flower is. The flower that attracts its flies with a sweet scent, and then the fly gets caught in it and it dissolves in a pool of acid and the flower eats it. I'm trying to think of any other animal that does that, because most animals either try to scare away or hunt down and catch what they want to eat. And then you have animals like that who try to attract their own prey. So I can't think of anything on top of my head, but that's just a small, teeny tiny defense of these sparkly vampires. Kind of an okay idea if they had played with it a little more. The writing is god-awful, and the characters are annoying as hell. I'm not going to try to defend any of that. But I'm just saying, from one little perspective, that kind of works. And then, of course, they've got The Strain that's coming out, which is based on a comic book by Guillermo del Toro. And that's coming to TNT, and that's basically where vampires are like worms or something? I don't know. Don't look it up if you don't want to see something creepy involving an eyeball. That's all I have to say about that. What other kind of vampires are there? Emotional vampires, that sounds interesting. I wish it wouldn't have to be negative. I wish it didn't have to be like suicide or lust or anything. I wish it were, if a, what was it, white vampire? I wish he could be a white vampire that was, like a comedian. And he fed off laughter. Because then you could just go to a comedy show every night and get fed. Or you could try and be a comedian yourself. That would be sad. If there were a story about a white vampire who went to comedy shows and like really fed off the laughter of others, but was so unfunny that he couldn't feed himself if he needed to. That would be a really sad short story. I would like, maybe, I'm not familiar with Dresden. I'm not familiar with the Dresden Files. The only thing I'm absolutely sure of is that he's a modern day wizard, and his name's Harry, and they use that a lot in the series as a joke, even though the series is actually older than Harry Potter, and it was a sci-fi show. But that would be an interesting, episode, meeting a white vampire who's kind of the red herring for this other vampire. But the white vampire is just interesting because he wants to make people laugh purely because he needs to eat, but also as an emotional response. It's kind of like how people do want to be good cooks, not just because they want to eat it, because they want to, have other people enjoy their cooking. This is interesting. What other vampires are there? I know there are ketchup vampires. Oh man, that reminds me of a VHS I got called Ketchup Vampires. And it was Ketchup Vampires and Ketchup Vampires 2. It was like this really weird European animated short show. I'm not sure if it was a series. It may have just been those two specials. It was about vampires and they eat ketchup instead of blood. Actually, no, wait. It was about vampires who like to eat ketchup and like to be, interact with humans. And they were like circus people. It's very like that circus vampire thing, the Cirque des Freaks or whatever, that kind of bombed, but it's actually a really good book series, I hear. It's kind of like that. But the point is that these ketchup vampires actually like, interacting with humans, and they're friendly and everything. And there's this other group of vampires that want to feed off blood, but I think they can't because there needs to be some sort of ceremony done or something. I don't know. I gotta look that up. Okay, that's a good question because now I gotta go and look up Ketchup Vampires and Ketchup Vampires 2, which were, I think they were narrated by Elvira. That was a selling point on the VHS cover when I rented it from the, wasn't a Blockbuster, it was a Video Roundup, and it's now a plumbing supply store. Oh, that's sad. Now I'm sad. I wonder if there's any white vampires to feed off my sadness. How do I feel about Kabillion pulling all the full episodes of Hero 108 off YouTube and replacing them with really short clips? Okay, well, first of all, I can only assume Kabillion is the owner. I didn't even know they had them on YouTube or available that way. Okay, for those who don't know, Hero 108 was a Canadian Flash animation that was on Cartoon Network. And it was, I I hate to use the word, or hesitate to use the word, cult hit, because it does have a following, but I'm not sure how big it is. Because it was placed in one of those odd little time slots, kind of really early in the morning before kids wake up, reruns at like 11 o'clock, when kids would be at school. And then again at like maybe 3, just when kids are getting out of school. So I'm not sure who exactly would have watched it. I should back up and explain the concept. The concept is that it's an animated series based off an epic Chinese poem about, there's not just 108 heroes. I think there's more of them. But it's an epic poem about all these heroes gathering together and fighting an oppressive evil. I think the movie that Keanu Reeves, not starred, that was marketed as starring Keanu Reeves. That movie that came out a few years ago. I forget. Cinema Snob did a great review on it, about how boring it was. But I think the premise of that movie is the same as this. There's this feud between humans and animals. And the humans want to make amends with all the animals, and the animals just want to fight the humans because of this jackass named High Roller tricked all the animals into thinking that the humans were their enemies. And you have this group called Big Green, and they're basically like freedom fighters, but they're also ambassadors. It's weird. It's like if the Expendables were also diplomats. That's the word I'm looking for. And one of the things that I think everyone really liked about the series is that the animals had all these weird, bizarre powers that at first didn't make any sense, but they all had some kind of weird theme to them that actually really fit. For example, like penguins were like bowling pins, and they really liked bowling, and they wouldn't join the human side until they could be beaten at bowling. I'm really digging at this penguin episode because it stood out as the most bizarre, because the Penguin King could shoot his skeleton out of his skin, hit the Northern Lights, the Borealis, take a hunk of it off, and use it like a mirror to make evil clones of all the heroes. Not evil, just opposing clones. It's just such a weird series. And I loved it because it was just, you had the Platypus King, who was really into puzzles. The Cheetah King and Queen were like hacky sack champions. Just such a weird show. But I guess I'm getting off the point, because the point is that apparently they have all the episodes on YouTube and then took them off. Because you think that makes sense, because the more clips you have, the more viewership you'd get. But actually, I heard from Jazza, an animator on YouTube, that's becoming a problem because YouTube has changed their practice from a pay-per-view payout to how long your video is viewed, which is like a huge upset amongst YouTube animators. Because sometimes they'll work months on a short, and because it's not as long as, say, like a vlog or even like this Let's Draw, they're not going to get paid as much, which completely sucks because they're the ones that put the most effort into their videos. It's this huge upset, and I should talk about that later, but I could see the business idea behind this is, okay, you've got one whole episode, and you maybe got one commercial clip at the beginning, and maybe one at the middle, and if you're lucky enough for them to stick around, one at the end. Okay. But instead, what you could do what Adult Swim does. It's kind of like a drip feed of their episodes. You can watch a whole episode of any given show on the Adult Swim account, in theory, because they just put them all there, but in short little chunks, which again is not really going to help them because of the aforementioned change in YouTube policy. Again, my condolences to all the hardworking and vastly more talented YouTube animators out there. One thing this reminds me of, an account, and I think it's still up, of Deke Animation. Deke Animation originally put full episodes of their older stuff. Like, they've got an account somewhere where they've got, like, Super Mario Brothers, Archie Mysteries, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and they've got like 3 or 4 episodes of each series. But the trailer on that channel is saying that it's a pay per subscription, which I'm not even sure if they have enough subscribers to do that. You have to have 1,000 subscribers in order to have a channel be based on subscription. And I'm not even sure if they have enough. But here's the funny thing. is that I found this, and I'm looking at all the videos, and I'm looking at that trailer, and it's like a year and a half old. So they wanted to execute this business plan, but they either didn't have enough subscribers, or just said, screw it, we're not even getting enough views. It's funny, because there's an official Kim Possible YouTube channel, like run by Disney. Same thing with Gargoyles, too. But the official videos have nowhere near the amount of feedback that the pirated videos do. And that just baffles me. I mean, yeah, if you're running a channel, you might want to just consider getting yourself your own website. I know that recently the Super Best Friends did that. They have their own channel now because of that huge content ID apocalypse that happened recently. It's amazing how this one little question just opened the floodgates for my mind about this. What video editing program do you use? Now, this is actually an interesting one because recently I've changed it. I used to use Windows Movie Maker, which is just basic, and I absolutely didn't realize how archaic it was. Because recently I started using a program called Lightworks, which I have absolutely fallen in love with. I don't know how it compares to things like After Effects and other, mainstream video editors, but it's a huge step up for me, which I should remind you all that all this stuff I'm kind of self-taught. I've had to learn how to do all the formats and I'm just self-taught. I just don't know any better, and I don't have anyone to hold my hand on this stuff. But I found Lightworks, and it is just a huge step above. And best of all, it's free. It's free, so if you want to go to, just type in Lightworks and check that out for yourself if you're, interested in starting video editing, and just play with it. It's great. The only stipulation is that there are a few hiccups. One, it doesn't really like Windows Movie Maker files. And by I mean the WMVs. And it's not really great with AVIs, but what it does work great with, it works with all the MPEGs, like your MPEG 2 up to 4, and it loves MP formats, your MP3s and your MP4s. That's fine, because that's kind of the standard now. It takes a while to learn, but that's okay, because there's some really great tutorials online. So if you want to, you can just go and learn all the ins and outs of it. But once you do, oh man, it just works like clockwork. It's just so much better, so much easier. There's so much more control to the footage than I did with Windows Movie Maker. But also, there's one thing. You can only export it on the free account. You can only export it to 720 MP4, which again, that shouldn't matter because that's kind of the standard now. At least for what I understand YouTube, the YouTube standard. Also, with the free account, you periodically have to sign into the website. You'll pop up and it'll say, well, you've kind of timed out and you need to sign in. So you need, to check in with, you have to have internet to check in. But again, that's not really a problem because I constantly have Wi-Fi going. Again, it's not really a problem. I also had Pinnacle Studio 12, but I mostly used that to capture footage. There's a little device they have called the Dazzle that comes with it. Rather, the program came with that, and that's what I was using to capture footage off of old VHS. And that itself is an editing program, but it would crash, it would just freeze up, it would just take too damn long. Lightworks does everything that I had to use multiple programs to do just within the program itself. I mean, I can green screen. I used green screen in my last video. The last video as this date was frozen. And it just went so much faster because I could use green screen. I could use picture-in-picture. Windows Movie Maker didn't have any of that crap. It was such bare bones that I had to install a codec to figure out how to use green screen. And even then, it was shoddy and crappy, and just the sides of whatever figure I wanted to use. Ugh. I can't even stand to think about it now that I've used this program. And the Pinnacle Studio, the things that they have you use in Lightworks, they want you to pay extra for. So, just, man, it's mostly replaced everything I'm using. I'm even starting to use it as an audio editor. Oh yeah, here's another thing. You can set up cues. I don't know if you can use this with other editing programs, but I love the cue system. You just press a button whenever you're watching a video. You press a button and boom, a cue set up. And you can go into another window and you can write a dialogue. You can write the jokes as you're watching the video. I don't have to open my word processor and go back and forth, back and forth. I can just do it all there. And then from Lightworks, you can export that, not a video editor, a word processor. And from there, you can just write around all your notes. You can write the script around your notes. It's great. It's amazing. And I love it. So yeah, Lightworks. Check it out. Scooby-Doo or Shelby Woo? When I first read that question, I thought for a second, was that the girl that could like change into a puddle of goo and like use electricity? No, that was a different Nickelodeon show. Shelby Woo, I think, was a story about a girl who worked at like a newspaper and she was a detective. And then you have Scooby-Doo, which, well, Scooby-Doo needs no introduction. And I'd have to go with Scooby-Doo. Not because I have all that much love for the original series or even the franchise as a whole. Like, I was aware of it, but I really like Scooby-Doo when real things happen. Like when they actually met something supernatural. For example, I'm a huge fan of all those direct-to-video kind of features like Scooby-Doo meets the Boo Brothers, the Ghoul School, the Reluctant Werewolf. And at the time, I was really blown away by Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island and the Witch's Ghost. Didn't like the Alien one, and I really didn't like the Cyber Chase. I mean, they were okay, basically. Kind of hated the ones that came after that. There was one about a goblin on Halloween that I really liked, like Scooby-Doo and the Goblin King. That was kind of cool. And that was kind of a turning point when they were going back to things I liked. In between that, I think they had What's New Scooby-Doo, which I didn't like. And they had a bunch of direct-to-video ones that I didn't like Loch Ness and the Monster of Mexico and stuff like that. Didn't really like the style, didn't really like the animation, didn't like the stories. The Goblin one was kind of where they kept the old style, but the writing got a little better, I think. And then there was this just huge shift with the magic one, where Scooby-Doo goes to magic school and they meet Velma's like cousin or sister. She's like this 60s chick or something. But huge step up in production with that one. Same thing for like the ones that came after with the vampire one, the dinosaur one, God, there's a really good one. The one where they go to camp, all right? I think that one's my favorite. I don't I like the original one. I have a fondness for that one because I can imagine being a kid back then and watching that and just like really think that was really neat. It's very atmospheric. Animation, of course, was shabby at best, but again, that's kind of the budget they were working with. The celebrity movies, some of them I liked. Of course, I liked the staples, the Batman, everyone knows that one, and the Addams Family. Those are the ones that kind of survived. I don't remember. They had like the Three Stooges. Some celebrities that, oh yeah, I remember them, and some of them are like, who? What came after that? I think just the rehashing, of course, the notorious Scrappy. And then for some reason, Velma and Freddy dropped out, and it was just Daphne. And then the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, which I loved when I first saw it, and then my love for it kind of depreciated after a while. I don't know why. I was just, again, I like it when real supernatural stuff happened, but I don't know. It just lost steam for me. But my absolute favorite Scooby-Doo property would be Mysteries Incorporated. That show was amazing, and it's criminal that it didn't get a third season. Oh, man. I don't know whether I should go into spoilers or not, but just check it out if you haven't. I've answered the question. There, Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo by a mile. Shelby Woo hasn't nearly had enough history or development, but yeah, Scooby-Doo. Just check out Mystery Incorporated.